Well, ladies and gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us. It's great to be back in Lisbon for Web Summit. My name is Mike Butcher, editor-at-large for TechCrunch, based out of London, and seat C of the plane. I'm delighted to be joined by a fantastic panel today. Hovhannes Avoyan, who's the co-founder and CEO of Picsart, which I'm sure many of you use. Let's do a round of hands. Who uses Picsart or has heard of it? Put up your hands. Right, yeah, I think we've got a few fans in the audience. Fantastic, thank you. And I'm also delighted to be joined by Sarah Ashman, who's global CEO of the creative powerhouse Wolf Olins. And those of you who don't know, Wolf Olins is the branding agency, branding, marketing, you name it, behind many of the world's biggest brands. So let's open up the conversation, which is about generation AI and this new era of creatives and businesses. The issue, I think, that we're facing at the moment is there's been such an explosion of interest in generative AI, particularly, of course, from the artistic and visual perspective, which is so key to branding. Sarah, what did you think when you first saw the Pope in a rapper's puffer jacket? Did you think, my goodness, he's so modern? Or did you think something else was going on?
Well, I think he was rocking a pretty good look and doing it quite well. But obviously, we know the Pope in a different context, so you're going to ask some questions pretty soon, aren't you?
Well, of course. Well, I'm being a little bit cheeky, because generative AI, generative art has exploded on the scene via that kind of medium, and many of us, of course, see those pictures, and they went around the world. And it's just a sort of an interesting conversation opener to the point that art is, and you know, the artful visual art is being changed by this. And Pixart, obviously, famously, was really a pioneer of this area prior to this new generative AI experience. And you've been such an enormous empowerment platform for artists and for creators. How is your audience reacting to the rise of generative AI?
Okay, thank you. So first of all, hello Pixart users. Very nice to see you all here. And for those who don't know Pixart, we have 1 billion installs actually up to date. And we use generative AI not like since 2017. I have a board deck when I pitched to my board that we are going to be AI first company. And by the way, I am also AI scientist by background. I was doing AI back in 90s when AI was not cool. And that's why AI was always on my agenda. So we get very early on the AI board, and we launched our first AI features in 2017. We called it Magic Filters, which allowed to take a picture and make it magical, transformations of it. And since that, we launched many tools. So remove background, upscaling the image, making it print ready, adding new filters, in-painting, alt painting. And last year, actually, during the Web Summit, we announced text-to-image. Text-to-image, one of the first companies in the world to have text-to-image on mobile. And since that, we're already approaching 1 billion generated images through AI. 1 billion. So you can understand our users really love it. They're really into it. And because they are Gen Zs, they are very much quickly adopting this new technology and seeing this as a very good productivity booster.
And so, yeah, it's been a real boost to artists. But one of the big issues is how it's used, especially in a business context. What's been the feedback from your creatives at Wolf Olins about how to use these new tools?
Well, we're clearly at the early stages of how you could use it. Within the current context, it's quite useful as a sort of a tool to enhance or make things more efficient processes. So usually in the work that we do, you might go through a visual auditing phase, and it's quite interesting to be able to use generative AI in that context. Or you're looking for references, And they're usually quite obvious references because you want to avoid them because we're in the business of doing things with originality. So there's lots of things like that that is quite useful, but they haven't evolved enough yet for us to believe that you can actually work hand in hand with them and get to something that feels truly original. And we're nowhere near all the copyright stuff having been sorted out in a way that makes you understand that actually you could own it and therefore you could assign the rights to someone else either. So that's why I say I think we're at this sort of shallow end of the pool of what's possible and still very much in exploration and curiosity mode.
Do your clients, and that copyright issue is so important, isn't it? Do your clients come to you and saying, oh, why can't we use this new tool, let's whip up some advertising campaign. Surely it's going to be cheaper to do things like that.
Well, I think in our particular kind of corner of the creative industries, because we're not making advertising per se, so we don't have those conversations. But there are definitely conversations around how could you set internal teams up to be able to do things efficiently themselves once they've maybe rebranded in that context and create some things for themselves. And obviously there's a lot of lawyers involved in all of this these days, so no one is ever going to say, Sarah Hovhannes, do you want to sit down and sort that out? It's unlikely that's going to happen.
The world will be a better place without
Yeah, lawyers. So, are we going to be able to get to the point where the lawyer aspect? Do you get any lawsuits coming to Pixart saying, please cease and desist and take this account down? They've used my art. This person is totally riffing on my original work. Please delete this account. You must get a lot of that.
No, not actually, because we are, our use case is started fun. So most of our users still consumers. They use our technology to make a social post, memes, fun stuff. Usually, this content is not really like harming any brand in a sense. It's actually some brands even interested to have this kind of virality happening through the social networks. So some brands even like encouraging community to post about them and their brand. So, our users are very much kind of like solopreneurs in a sense. So they have a little bit less concern like Nikes and Adidas of the world, big brands, enterprises that really have a very much concern. But if you look at small businesses, Gen Zs running like their small shop on Etsy or eBay, they should be really careful of this generating content, but they have a less concern. They see this is more an opportunity than a risk. So, and they are early adopters. The new generation of marketers, new generation of entrepreneurs, they are much more open to embrace this technology and use it to promote their business, for example.
I see. Do you see a time when it's going to impact your business as a branding consultancy? Do you see a point where, because it's so democratized, that there becomes greater and greater points at which people use this in a much more kind of, muscular manner that's sort of almost approaching the edge of the professional world that you live in? I mean, do you ever see that a time when these platforms might simply become platforms that almost replace branding agencies in some way?
I think it would be difficult, I say this now, but so maybe in 20 years' time I'll feel differently, but I think it would be quite hard to wholesale replace what we do, because I think it's quite hard to replace human beings if you
But that's the question though, isn't it? Is it hard to replace human beings?
But that said, and I'm very pro-tech, and I have a lot of curiosity about how we can work together, and actually how creative, generative AI can become a muse for the kind of work that we do. Because as I said before, you're always looking for what's original and what's different, and that should take you to new places and novel places, and we shouldn't be afraid about that. But at the moment, I can't see the pathway to how it would do something exceptional creatively that a human being and teams of human beings working together wouldn't do better. And that's partly because of the kind of uncanny valley gap that we have, and we haven't explored what's possible enough to overcome that. And also because, we're just, there's moments of serendipity and weirdness about how we collide with each other and have ideas that it's hard to write a rule for that AI could then follow.
I suppose you're sort of talking about the scenario in the agency where people sort of bump into each other and come up with new ideas. Do you feel that AI still doesn't have that capability to be sort of truly original?
Not yet, which is not to say it couldn't get there. But I can't see anything at the moment that makes me fearful of that or makes me think, this is great, we're going to set up a whole new agency based on that model. And if you look at all of the things that we draw on tech-wise at the moment, they use the same reference. It's like the data set that it's drawing down on, we all have access to. And if we all have access to it, then there's not going to be anything new about it. You have to still find those new and original and weird and novel references that take you somewhere else. And often that's just lived experience of human beings sitting down and having those collisions and, the sparks that come from that, which are not yet being generated.
Yes.
And I suppose it is also about the way that popular culture kind of interacts. An AI isn't aware of a brand new breaking band or something like that. Pixart recently released new tools, one of which was, I noticed, that we covered on TechCrunch, which was where you could remove an object in a video. Now, there's a lot of controversy about the potential for AI to create disinformation. Do you feel that Picsart is bordering on the edge of being empowering that potential for disinformation?
Yeah, first of all, I can continue the discussion about, I think we believe the AI is not a replacement for human creativity, it's actually a copilot or booster of human creativity. I give you one statistics, 80% of our users, 80%, almost like everyone, they are introducing additional editing after they create AI content. So it's not really like producing a final result, it's being a part of the creative process. It could be ideation stage, it could be editing stage, it could be final production stage. AI could be a co-pilot in all these stages. And it's very, very powerful technology, and there's no question about that. And at every powerful technology, there's a bright side and there's a dark side of using the technology. I don't think it's technology to be blamed. It's not. It's a tool. For me, it's a tool, and it could be used for bad. So it could harm, like anything. Electricity, internet, every powerful tool could be used for bad things. I think we should not fight with the technology. We should fight with the applications and people which are using this technology for a bad. So this is, I think, fundamentally, I believe, like every technology, every powerful technology have a dual use. It could be good use, it could be bad use.
Well, that's fair, but what are you doing, Picsart? What is Picsart doing to watermark, say, images to make it obvious or at least detectable that video has been manipulated in some way, so that we can all see things in a more transparent manner?
Yeah, I think we are doing multiple things. So the ethical aspect and legal aspect has multiple phases and multiple factors. So, for example, we are discouraging to use living artist name in a prompt. We are filtering content from being not safe. So, if it's generated, if people use, like non-safe for work kind of prompts or generate content, we are filtering. So we are having very powerful AI filters to really not to make at least public any harmful content. So it list goes on and on. We have trust and safety people that consistently working on making it more safer and safer. It's new technology. Still, we are still learning all the risk and damages it can make, and we are adjusting as we go. It's only 1 year old technology in a sense, which is nothing in a lifetime of every technology. But we are actively working to make it safer and safer and safer.
Right. Yeah. But also, do you feel that your platform is being used in sort of training data in some way, for these new foundational platforms?
Yeah, I don't think that our data particularly used in other things. I think some of our images are public, so are there on our websites and in our mobile apps. We have a very large community of users which are publishing their images. We also have our own license, which is kind of open source, which allows to other users of the community to remix the images. So what's very unique about Pixart, I don't know if you know that, but we have a community of people which are remixing each other's images on our platform, and it creates a huge amount of data sets in Pixart, but I don't think it's available for anybody to use it.
Right, I see. Obviously, Hovhannes is a massive branding agency and is globally known, has been around for many years. One of its key aspects is logos, isn't it? It's the actual kind of brand identity of a company. But of course, we can see now that using generative AI, people can take those logos, they can manipulate them slightly. What do you see, and what have you seen in terms of how the platforms are being used in that manner? Are you seeing, strange, interesting things coming out of that world?
I think people are always going to have a lot of fun with any symbol or gesture in the world, aren't they, visual or otherwise? And of course it's out there, and it always has been, in truth. It's just that more people have hands on the tools to be able to do that. If you're a company, you own your logo. It's copyrighted, so you get to decide whether you want to do something about that if you feel like it's either infringing, but more likely reputationally damaging you in some way. And then, they make decisions on that basis. So for us, as creators at Hovhannes, we're constantly, as I've mentioned before, just trying to find how do you stick true to what's true about yourself and your origins, but do that in a more distinctive way. And that could get harder as the world's flatter and you get to see more references in the world, or it could get easier if the same references are being used in other places, and therefore you've got more distinction. And if I'm a company seeing my logo being manipulated in lots of different ways right now, on one hand that's actually quite good, because it means people
In what way?
Well, it means people are actually interested in you culturally, and they're interested in playing with your toolkit, as it were. And if that's being done in a sort of playful, fun way, then even though you want to make sure that your copyright is protected, that's not a bad thing to see in the world necessarily.
Do you think there's a sort of an interesting feedback loop that's going to happen because these tools are becoming so well democratized that anyone, I can go and make a strange logo out of a Pepsi logo or a Coca-Cola logo using one of these platforms now? Do you think there's going to be an interesting sort of feedback loop that develops in the way that's going to affect your work in a professional sense?
Well, anyone can create these things. Whether they're good or not is another question. And who gets to define what good taste is a question that's, I'm curious to debate, because we've always had tastemakers in the world, and we've always had a standard that's being set, whatever creative discipline you're in, writing, architecture. These are defined by the day and by particular entities of the day, and I think that will sustain. Interesting question is whether a generative AI will ever become one of those tastemakers of the future. But yeah, I think we do get to decide whether we think something is of a particular standard, and I don't think personally that anyone is going to be able to create that standard without the training, without some people around them to spark the right ideas. All sorts of things go into the pot to really be able to create something that's amazing, exceptional, as opposed to something that we could all create,
It's interesting you mentioned the word tastemakers, because tastemakers in the traditional sense and in the old sense of the last, say, 20, 30, 40 years, I suppose, or as longer, have been people who, affect the culture, or at least certainly tweak the culture that we're all living in to, enliven it in some new way. There's a lot of debate, of course, about how artificial intelligence is going to change the way we work day to day. You, obviously, as an agency, you're looking at these tools. Pixart as a platform is enabling these tools. how do you both see the world of work changing? Are you excited about the possibilities of humans being augmented in this way? Do you see that, or is there a concern that humans might be replaced in some way?
Right.
What's your view on Pixart?
Right. So we are in the same creative space, but we have different mission. As you said, our mission is to democratize creativity. The story of Pixart, we started because I want to create something for my daughter. She was 10 years old, to be creative and empowering her and all creatives in the world to make it accessible and available to everyone to create. So that was my big mission. That's what I believe. And that's why I see AI is really playing well with my mission, because it's making it even easier to create. It's lowering of barriers and doesn't require like lots of education and training to create something beautiful, and really unlocking lots of creative power of human being. So I think this is for me, it's a very fundamental thing. I believe AI is helping you to bypass certain kind of friction to create. And you really can focus on a strategy, you can focus on a big picture, you can focus on a message versus on technique, how you build that, which empowers new generation of designers, which ultimately going to work with media agencies and create something even higher level and more sophisticated.
And I think, I was going to say, from my point of view right now, on the one hand, I can see how it would help make things more efficient and more productive, but I don't really want to live in a world where it's all just about productivity. And I don't want human beings to be thought of as just units of productivity. And so in the company that I work in, I want to make sure that we don't become a factory that gets faster because we've got new tools, as opposed to a place where creativity thrives and finds different ways to thrive. And so if I have a concern, it's that we'll try and sort of speed up an already fast way of doing things in a way that actually won't just not protect creativity, but could actually worsen it, because we're just trying to speed it. We're just trying to do what we're doing now faster and have more of it, as opposed to have the necessary time that it can take to create something that is truly exceptional.
I should think, obviously, inside a company, you at Pixart, you're telling your employees to use it as much as you can. Do you have a policy at Wolf Owens about how you use it? Some companies are actually putting policies in saying, don't use it in this way, or do use it in that way. Do you have an official stance on that?
So we have a playbook, and it's still forming. And on the one hand, it's around experimentation, and then the other, it's around tight rules about what happens when it might be released in the world in any form. So we want to get to know how to use these things, and we want to explore them with all the curiosity and push them as far as we possibly can. But we certainly don't want to be in danger of putting any individual or company at risk of any copyright issues along the way. So we're straddling that line in terms of, like, let's be playful, let's really enjoy it, but at the same time, let's be mindful of what this could develop into next, and that we don't know what we don't know right now.
Hovhannes, what's the one sentence you could give us as a closing moment? What can we expect next from Pixart?
So, as a former AI scientist, I'm very excited and also scared about this new technology and new opportunities. I believe we are very early in the process of discovering how AI could be used. Lots of things coming from out of Pixart. So we are released just the Pixart Ignite 20 advanced products, and the next is video. I think the next thing is going to focus on like more sophisticated content, and stay tuned.
Stay tuned, everyone, for the next version of Pixart and the next version of the branding agency, I dare say. But for now, I'd like to thank Hovhannes Avoyan, who's the co-founder and CEO of Pixart, and Sarah Ashman, global CEO of Wolf Owens, and from me, Mike Butcher from TechCrunch. Have a great conference, everybody. Ciao.
Thank you.